Hi, my name is teacher Juan Carlos Angulo, and today I am presenting classroom management techniques and reflection on practice. Classroom talk. Classroom talk is the way teachers and learners interact in the classroom and how this affects learning. From this interaction, communication can either go both ways as interactional communication or transactional communication. The first is communication for real communicative purposes, and the later is communication to transmit information. It is of great importance that interaction is analyzed so that we can know what happens during classroom interactions and so we can learn how to improve it. There are two main participants in classroom talk, that of the teacher and the learner. In teacher talk, we have to consider aspects such as quantity, speech modifications, the different types of questions, the interaction of initiation, response, feedback, and wait time. In learner talk, we have to be aware of the impact of scaffolding and interaction in communicative tasks. Corrective feedback. What is feedback? Feedback is information given to the learner about their performance in the use of the language. There are two important terms that have to be cleared out before we cover this topic. Error, which is when a learner is not able to correct because he or she lacks knowledge of the form. And mistakes, which are slips of the tongue, which a learner is able to correct by themselves. We cannot talk about feedback without taking into consideration what it does to learners in an emotional level, because corrective feedback will affect a learners along a positive, neutral, or negative emotional continuum. The teacher is responsible of giving feedback, but there is also self-correction and peer correction. The effectiveness of feedback is a debated topic, but the majority of authors agree that correction has to happen, but from who or when is still on debate. Group work. It has become a fundamental part of the teaching process because of its innate aspect of communication, which has been the banner of the communicative approach. And it has even been considered as a key competence for a lifelong learning. Although some disadvantages are apparent in this class activity, such as the noise factor, discipline, and that of the use of L1. To incorporate group work into a classroom, the teacher has to take into account aspects such as the instructions that are going to be given, preparing vocabulary previously, do a quick review, establish a time limit, and setting arrangements for stopping. All of this before actually starting the activity. During the activity, the teacher has to be available to help students ensure the use of L2 and regulating participations. At the end of the activity, the teacher has to choose a moment when the activity still remains interesting to finish it. Finally, teachers have to give feedback. Mixed ability. What is mixed ability? It is the fact and appreciation that our classrooms are heterogeneous, where no two learners are ever the same. It is established that when we say ability, we are talking about students' ability to perform and of their potential learning ability. And this impacts the way we as teachers need to prepare for our teaching practice. The advantages are many. Mixability tends to be associated with problems of failure, but There is more to say about this matter, such as the fact that there are proven advantages of weaker students working with stronger students. Also, a much richer pool of human resources is given. There is educational value in the contact between learners. The teacher is freer to attend specific witnesses of students or learners, and classes are far more interesting to teach. There are some situations in mixability like that of tracking, which is when groups of students are segregated with regard of their ability. Finally, multiple intelligence is a way of considering mixed abilities because it refers precisely to abilities, not disabilities. Discipline. Discipline is the relationship between discipline and learning is a crucial one. It is clear that discipline is the setting, observing, and obeying of behavior rules, but the impact of overseeing them causes problems in the learning process. There are considerations for teachers that don't have group control, even to the fact that they can lose their jobs. The source of the problem comes from the uncertainty and unpredictable matter of the class itself. We cannot control it, we cannot predict it. In the classroom, teachers have to be always aware of discipline, considering that teaching focuses on aspects such as the learner has to speak more than the teacher, or that group work is a must on language classrooms today, right? In the actual classroom, teacher tends to develop a class in terms of their own aims, overlooking the aims of the student. Reinforcement, in the other hand, such as praise, rewards, or merit, have proven to motivate learners in the right way. The use of L1 in the classroom. The debate goes as far as the grammar translation model, who was in complete favor, obviously, of the L1, followed by the audiolingual method, also in favor. Many more came after that, but to give equilibrium to these opposite points of view, along came Cummings and proposed the dual iceberg model, underlaying common as well as language-specific models. Code switching is when the teacher changes languages from L1 to L2 and the effect it has on the learner's talk. It has been proven that L1 is used more in the classroom, using L2 in the classroom. There is no consensus or rules that determine the use or limitations of the L1 in the classroom. Some authors have published accepted aspects into what to consider when making a decision on these matters, such as Promodo's consideration on flexibility to student needs, or Atkinson referring to translation, but mentioning that excessive use becomes a dependency, and Willis' statement that the opportunity for exposure to the language by students is the language used by the teacher in the classroom. Mostly, right? Okay, because they could even play video games and listen to it, but the real exposure for students to the language is actually when the teacher speaks. Okay, teacher thinking is concerned with the private domain with the internal thought and decision-making process which a teacher uses while doing her or his work. Okay, so it is what happens in the private domain of the teacher. It has some characteristics such as it is subjective and elusive, context specific, okay? It has decision making, it has to be pre-active, interactive decisions, and post-active, What is the teacher going to do before the teaching take place, during the decisions that the teacher makes during the actual teaching activity, and after. What did the teacher learn about it? What shapes our teaching, the way in which we were taught, teacher beliefs about the learners, and the affected climate. This is what shapes our teaching. It says in the lecture that these aspects are what determine how are we going to be as teachers. In conclusion, this was a very exciting unit. It has covered a lot of very interesting topics, topics that we have to adapt to our actual teaching exercise and experience. We have to adapt them now. We have to implement them at the moment of speaking. I mean, we are actually working as teachers right now, and we need to make some changes in accordance to what we have learned. For example, classroom talk, it is very interesting to promote classroom talk in the students. We all know that it is important. Now we know why. Corrective feedback and its importance. We all need to be very aware of the emotional impact that the student is going to suffer. Group work. It is one of my favorite activities and is one of the favorite activities from the students. And I mean, the positive influence of those activities is all around us. Mixed ability, it is something that we cannot do anything about it. We have an heterogeneous group with, in my personal experience, with 40 to 70 students, which are completely in different levels. And I had to prepare myself to attend most or all of the students. Discipline is a factor that took me a while, but I can now say that I have a lot more control over it. I mean, I can now say that I am ready to take charge of a group with 70 students, which was not easy. It wasn't easy, but now because of experience, mostly because this is the first time I am reading about this, but mostly from experience, I am now able to manage a big group like that. And it's high school. I mean, it's difficult, but it's possible. Finally, well, the use of the L1 in the classroom, it is definitely something to consider. In my experience, I use it mostly for translation, and I think that only for translation. Maybe to get some rapport, but mostly for translation. And with the final topic, teacher thinking, it's something that my institution has always pushed for. You need to be prepared. You have to design a class. I mean, planning a class is something that you do before. The decisions that you make during a class are not like unique. They tend to repeat themselves because of the context in which you teach. And after that, it is the notes that you make on the planning of what worked and what needs more work. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.